Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Cage Talk. Today, I have former MMA fighter with a record of 7 wins with 1 loss, 4 by submission, 3 by TKO. We have founder and CEO of Smash Global. We have Steve Hulk Smash wearing green Orazio. How do you say that?
Orosco. All good.
Orosco. See, I told you, bro. Told you I was gonna mess it up. How you doing, man?
I'm so good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Again, thank you for coming on the show. Very inspiring person just to have on the show. You've done a lot in your career with fighting and also after fighting, and that's very important because a lot of fighters, stick to once they're done with their careers. They lose themselves in finding who they really are and stuff like that. And I've talked to plenty of fighters who are kind of on that bridge where they still, fighting was everything, and now they're in the real world, and it's very hard to figure themselves out. And again, like you had a backup plan, not even a backup plan. You were just grinding like we talked before. You grind, and it's worked out for you. And again, it's very inspiring. So it's awesome, bro.
One second.
Right.
I always say that the hardest thing for a fighter is to market themselves, because when you're fighting, that's all you are focused on. You're not like, oh, let me go out and network and meet people, so then when I'm done fighting, I'm set up for the next stage of my life. Because if you're a fighter, you're a fighter because you want to be a world champion.
Yeah.
So when you retire, you already have your trajectory in stone. But the chances of you being the next George St. Pierre, who's going to make millions of dollars after you retire, you're talking about less than 1% chance. And that's hard for a fighter because fighters are full of pride and ego.
Definitely.
So to be in the middle of my career and to say, oh, I might never be a legend, I might not make it, let me start networking and building relationships now, that it's like counterintuitive. It's something that you wouldn't do, and it doesn't even make sense to do it, but it's something you really do have to do.
Definitely. And it's awesome that you kind of did that. And again, like I said, there's plenty of fighters that, again, they have that ego, they still want to get into the ring, way past their prime, and things unfortunately don't end up going their way. And it's sad to see sometimes, especially when they shouldn't be in the ring, and they're like, oh man, is it ego or is it money that's, kind of pushing towards that? And
how do you even say no to money? Like, yes, the best example ever was when I was online doing Chuck Liddell yesterday. And I know Chuck's career, but obviously before I go and interview someone, I make sure I go through their Wikipedia to see some things that I might not have known, like really some specifics. I didn't even realize. So his record ended up being, it was like 27 I'm sorry, 21-9, I think it was, which is a great record because he fought all Hall of Famers and legends. He was at that prime, but 6 of his last 7 fights he lost
by knockout.
So you think about it, like so if he had said, something, I'm gonna call it quits, his record would have been like 20-2 when he retired.
Yep.
But how do you say no to, hey, come fight Rampage or come fight Tito for $500,000, when if you're a fighter, you do it because you love it. Like it's just in your soul. How do you stop? And when do you call quit? And no fighter goes out on top. It's very rare. George St. Pierre is probably the only guy that actually went out on his own terms. Floyd Mayweather did it as well, but it's very rare guys do that.
Yep. It's happened to look. As we speak, we have Mike Tyson versus Roy. What is this? Again, big fan of both, but sometimes you just don't want to see that. Like, it'll be a nice matchup, but I'm like, dude. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's all entertainment, and they actually postponed it today. So now I'm like, I wonder if it's actually going to happen.
Oh, they did? I
So
didn't know
yeah,
that.
they postponed it to November 12th.
Oh, so it was supposed to
I'm
be
like,
September
man,
8th, right? It was something like that.
yes, they postponed it a month. So I don't know like the details of why.
Hmm.
I also saw that Jake Paul got not indicted, but his house raided the other day, and he's supposed to be fighting on the card. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But they put a lot of money into this Tyson and Jones thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing it just because, you know,
You're a fan.
I'm a fan. Obviously, it's not like true fighting. It's not like a
Exactly.
true boxing match, but it'd be nice just to see their presence in the ring together.
Definitely. Definitely, I agree, and hopefully, hopefully that will happen. But when I did, I thought he was gonna. I thought he was supposed to fight Holyfield. I thought that was where we're gonna get, and then Roy Jones came out
Yeah.
of nowhere. But I was like, okay, I'll take it. Again, big fan of both of them. I like their styles, but it's one of those things, man. It's hard. Like you want to watch, but you just don't want the outcome to be something devastating or something. But,
I agree with you because everyone keeps on seeing these videos of Mike training. Like, holy shit, he's ripped. He's punching like a monster. He's a beast. And I'm like, yeah, he's definitely still got it. All the old guys still have it. It's muscle memory. The difference is can your chin still take a punch? And the answer is no.
no.
Like if Tyson went in there and fought like Dante Wilder, he would get knocked out. Not because his skill level is not as good, it's because he can't take a punch from a heavyweight anymore.
Yep.
It's just age. That's what happens.
Again, unfortunately, we saw it again with Chuck Liddell
Yeah.
that Tito Ortiz Chuck Liddell fight should never happen in my books. I hated that, for that trilogy just to end like that. It should have been the second one was fine when he whooped Tito's ass. Boom, that's it. But
Yeah, I agree. I agree because Chuck, I love how Styles make fights because Chuck had Tito's number. Chuck
he just
smashed him twice, but then Rampage smashed Chuck twice.
yep.
And it goes in circles of like Styles do really make fights.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And talking about styles, your basic style. You started out as a wrestler, right? And
Yeah,
I watched I saw some of your fights. Some of them were very interesting. There was one that I think that made me kind of laugh. I think you submitted the guy with a standing rear naked choke, which I never seen in my life. You didn't have any
yeah,
hooks or nothing. You just
yep.
so that was interesting.
Nothing.
But your career started. It started there obviously, but I saw an interview with you, and you said your moment where you changed, you're like, hey, this is gonna be something, is when you had your first defeat. Can
Yes,
you talk a
huge.
little bit about that and how that night went and what was your thought
Yeah.
process after?
Man, that's like still the single most defining moment of my life, and I wouldn't change it for the world because if I had won that fight, I wouldn't be talking to you right now because I wouldn't have started my company. Who
Definitely.
knows where I would have went? And that was the one time where like I felt like a monster, man. I was ready, and I got the opportunity to fight the number one kid in Australia. He was UFC bound, and I was the main event. I had to cut like 20 pounds that week, which was rough.
Yeah.
But I got there. I felt amazing. I was like, I'm gonna smash this kid. But man, when I stepped in the ring that day, it was the first time I truly understood what home field advantage meant.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. You would think it doesn't matter. You're fighting someone else. What who cares? The crowd should not matter at all because it's you versus another man. It's like your skill. But I
Mhm.
still remember walking out and it was like everyone's fuck America. And for me, like that drove me. And
Mhm.
then I was in the ring and he comes out and the crowd is screaming and all of a sudden he's in the ring. They call my name and they boo boo boo. And then when they called him, I
They just
shouldn't
went
have even
crazy.
looked at him. They went crazy to the point where in Australia at the time cages were still banned. It was in
Okay.
the ring.
Yeah.
And I still remember I remember the canvas literally shaking under my feet. It was so loud. And I looked across the ring and I just saw that glimmer in his eyes like, there's no way I'm losing, and like I'm
Mhm.
walking on water.
Yeah.
And that bell rang, and I went out a little differently than I normally do. I normally just press hard like a wrestler. I'm taking you
Mhm.
down,
Yep.
ground and pound, punch, punch, punch until you start to turn, put in the rear naked choke, and it's over. But with this kid, he's a striker, and my ego got to me. I was like, let me test
Let
my
me try it.
striking.
Let's see if I can stand up with him.
Yeah, because I saw his whole training camp. He went to Thailand.
Okay.
So he was really working on his striking, and I wasn't really that impressed with it. But when we got in there, it was like I threw a couple of jabs, a couple
Mhm.
pitter patter kicks to feel him out. And then there was one moment where I threw, it was a jab, I threw a left hook as hard as I could, and he threw a right hand at the same exact time. And he
Yes.
caught me right on the money, right on the money. And it was just like survival mode. I don't even remember anything except for like backing up against the ropes, and he threw an uppercut,
That's when you
split
shot
my
in, I think.
gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah, he split my gloves. I dropped, and I still remember to this day, man. Like I was on all fours. I was in my corner. He was behind me, just raining punches down. It just sounds like gunshots going off in the back of your head.
Mhm.
I'm in my corner, so my coach is yelling at me. The ref is saying, "Improve your position." The crowd is so loud because we're in Australia as the main event. I see my nose is pouring blood on the mat. That's never happened to me before, and I just honestly I froze.
Mhm.
And that's something you can never prepare for in practice. And the thing that pisses me off so much is all I had to do was turn over and pull guard and
Mhm.
get my composure back and start over. And I didn't, and I froze like a deer in headlights. And it still drives me crazy. I think about it at least 10 times a day. It's one of my
Really?
driving factors of life.
Okay. But then again, like you said, if you didn't have that where you failed, but you ended up having something positive come out of that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
obviously. And let's talk about it. This organization, Smash Global, man. I've seen it, and I really have a good feeling about it. I mean, I think the idea behind it is it's pretty badass. I like it a
Thank
lot,
you.
man. I think
Thank you.
it's like
No, so I was,
the bougie. It's like the bougie MMA
yeah,
almost, man. I like it.
absolutely. You remember, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you remember the movie Friday
Yeah, of course. Classic.
with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. And this is like the moment that just it hits me where that night after the fight, like everyone else went out and partied. And
Hmm.
I'm not that guy. Like when I lose, like I really reflect it. It's hard. And I
Okay.
remember sitting in my room by myself in the dark, no family, no friends. And I had that like outer body experience where I knew it was over. And I felt like, remember when Chris Tucker smoked that angel dust and they found him in the pigeon
Yeah.
coop and he was all like going crazy?
Uh-huh.
That's exactly how I felt when I was sitting in bed thinking about what just happened. Because when you fight, you don't remember anything because it happens so fast. And
Hmm.
you try so hard, and it drove me crazy. And I just sat there like, man, what am I going to do with my life now? And I went backwards. So like I worked on Wall Street. I have an MBA. I have an MS. So I have an education. So it was either go back into finance, which I was never happy, and I'm a very passionate, like driven person. I need to love what I do
Definitely.
to move forward. So it was either that or it was open up my own gym where I had my own fight team and stupid rationalization. But at the time it was, I don't want to clean mats at 6 a.m. and be at the gym until 10 p.m. cleaning mats too.
Definitely.
So what can I do in my sport to make it better and still stay relevant? And I said, what is it lacking? And for me, the problem with MMA was and no offense to the fans, it's a NASCAR driven
Yep.
sport. Where boxing has centuries of history and buildup, and these guys who started it, they wore suits and ties, and their wives came in gowns, and it
Definitely.
was a social thing.
Yep.
Whereas MMA came from a very grassroots bleed, bleed, bleed. no sanctioning, no gloves, no weight classes. It was raw. It really was human cockfighting when it started.
Back in the day, yeah.
And yeah, so when I always say, you know, it's a NASCAR crowd compared to boxing that had that Formula One presence,
Hmm.
I said, how do I get that Formula One crowd to come watch MMA live? Like, what can I do? So I just packaged it in a way where it was black tie,
I like
ticket price point was like a VIP, like $500, $1,000. Very intimate, so like 250 to 300 people. So you get the networking experience,
that. Definitely.
and then the most important, you're eating dinner. It's open bar, and then I invite celebrities because I'm able to. I don't want to say I don't exploit them, but when people can't even name 5 UFC champions in the first place, they don't care who's fighting. So I need a name to
Definitely.
attach the show with. So
Gotcha.
I honor someone who's made a significant impact in the sport. You know, so I started with Freddie Roach, and then
You had,
it
I
was
mean,
Freddie, then
you
Tito
had,
Ortiz, and
yeah,
Steven.
Steven Seagal. You had Lou, I think Lou Ferrigno I saw in there. Shane Mosley.
Yep,
Who was the other part? Mickey Rourke was in there. I was like, oh man, like,
Roar.
who else?
Yeah,
I'm trying. Dolph Lundgren. I saw that. That was pretty cool. So I mean, you have some
yeah,
Mel Gibson. So you have some pretty legendary people there. And again, like I said, it's cool because I was looking up on that, and it's like almost like a meet and greet, but also you have dinner, and it
yeah.
looks again that venue looks really really cool, and it looks classy, but you get to still watch a fight, and that's pretty cool, man. I didn't
And
know about the
people, it's
open bar
funny.
though. I didn't know about that
Yeah,
though.
and it's funny how much more respectful people are when they're suited and booted
Really.
compared to when they're not. Because the reality of MMA, for example, aside from the UFC, I'm talking all the local shows. The local show, a ticket's going to cost like $25 to $30. And on a local show, there's probably going to be 20 fights on the night. Every single person that's there is only there because they bought tickets to support somebody that's fighting that night. So it's a very, you know, it's not a lower demographic, but it's a $25 ticket crowd. That's what you get.
Is what
And
you
and
get. Yeah.
I and I want that Formula One crowd because I tell people, man, you spend $500 on a ticket and everyone else spends $500 on a
No
ticket.
one's gonna act a fool. You're right.
No one's gonna act a fool, and you have access to so many people from a networking experience because everyone is a viable opportunity because they all spend $500 on a ticket.
Definitely. Definitely. And
You
again,
know?
I mean, it's cool. Like I said, you had all those people come in and help you out and just support you, and it's pretty cool. I love, to be honest with you, because I'm from Miami. I love dressing up, man. I love putting a suit. I like putting a tie on.
Yeah,
I
me
love all that.
too.
So that's something. Again, you're a really good dresser. I'll give you that. I'll give you props on that, man. You dress
Thank you.
sharp, and that's something I like, especially, and you especially go to a fight and stuff. You dress nice and stuff, and I mean, you never know who you can meet, and like you said, who you can network with. So
Absolutely, and that's this day and age. It's all, you know. Your net worth is your network, you know, and
mhm,
it's absolutely true now. It wasn't like that back in the day, but now it's so much truth to it.
definitely. Now, when your first event was what year? It was 2000. What? It was 16.
2000. So my first 2 shows, I had them in San Diego. That's where I
Okay.
was when I was fighting.
Hmm.
Um, and I call those practice. Like I wasn't honoring anyone. San Diego is a very beer and festival kind of city.
Okay.
You know, like it's not really a black tie kind of thing where there's celebrities and media. And it wasn't until I had a woman who came to my show named Jackie Callan, and she was, they call it, like the queen of boxing. So she was the manager for James Lights Out Tony and
Okay.
Tommy Hearns. So she knew everyone. And she came to the show and she was floored by it. She said, wow, this is amazing. This is what the sport needs, because
Mhm.
she saw the evolution of MMA taking over boxing at some point. So it was her idea. She said, why don't we take this to LA? So I ended up hiring her for a year as like a consultant,
Okay.
and she brought me to LA. She introduced me to so many people. Freddie Roach was the first one who I became close with, and she said, "Hey, listen, every show you need to honor somebody. You need that name for people to associate your brand with and make them want to come. Because if let's just say it's Roach, you invite Freddie Roach, you honor him. Well, there's going to be other celebrities who respect Freddie so much that they're going to want to come and support."
Definitely.
So it's like a domino effect, and it worked really well. And not every show has been great. Some shows were incredible, and I had a couple shows where I was like, "Fuck,"
Yeah.
like you take a big L, but then you say, I have all these celebrities that came, and I had this content that's priceless. Because if any of those celebrities enter my cage, that means they're a part of my show. That means I can use their likeness forever.
That's it. Yeah.
So I have to put like a value on that.
Definitely. But again, how did you know how many classes or like weight classes you wanted for this when you first started, or you wanted something very simple, maybe light heavyweight and heavyweight, and work your way, or how did that kind of start up?
Yeah, first it was just trying to find the best fighters possible,
Definitely.
that weren't signed by the UFC. And now I'm at the point where I want to crown champions. So I want a whole roster where I have a champion in every single weight class. So I think there's eight male weight classes, 3 female weight classes per se, so 11 total. Um, just just about every single one of my champions has been signed by the UFC. Had
Right.
3 of them, which is really cool because it kind of is a testament that I am bringing in a lot of the best fighters, and they've all won in the UFC as well. So it's pretty cool. It just sucks losing them, because every time I crown a champion, I end up losing my guy, and then I got to do a whole nother fight to have new champions.
Well, that's one thing, especially since you're kind of like in your competition now, right? You join this, Smash Global now. UFC is like the big dog that likes to take everyone, and
Yes,
they like to
everyone.
do like a big monopoly. Again, I had some fighters on that. I had Mark Hunt on, and he wasn't a fan of UFC, and
Of course.
I mean, there's been so many fighters that were just like, yeah, like Gray Maynard, I had him on, and he was just, again, just the pay and the way they kind of treated their fighters wasn't the greatest. Jamie Varner as well was another fighter.
Yeah, WEC, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah,
man.
the problem, the biggest problem, and I'll tell you the biggest problem with fighters is that fighters don't know their value. And the reason why they don't know their value is because, let's just say every single UFC fighter were to boycott and say, "I'm not fucking fighting. I'm
Mhm.
done." Right? Then the UFC has nobody. The UFC can go out and find 500 other licensed pro fighters that would actually go in that cage and fight for free. Just the publicity and the marketing, and just to say they fought in the
Oh, in the
UFC. And
UFC.
that's a problem. And that's what sucks.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if it's ever going to change unless there becomes a union and they're forced to. But, like, how all sports are. I think, like, football, for example, 40% of the revenue goes to the athletes.
Yep.
Whereas in the UFC, I think it's like only like 10%.
10%. 10%.
And
Yep.
10%. And the guys who are just getting into the UFC, like, they're starting out getting paid $10,000 to fight, and then $10,000 as a win bonus. So you're talking about, even if a guy goes into UFC and fights 3 times in 1 year, which is very difficult, and wins all 3, he's only going to make 60 grand plus maybe whatever backroom bonuses he might receive, and minimal Reebok sponsorship. So to make $100,000 a year as a UFC fighter in your
Very
first few
hard.
years is very difficult. And it's so unfortunate, because people don't realize what you give. I mean, I've had 3 knee surgeries, shoulder surgery. I have a torn ACL right now that I still have to go get surgery on. I'm just waiting until summer is over. I'm not trying to be locked up during the summer, and it's
Yeah.
But
Like,
we kill our bodies, but we do it because we love it so much. I can't even explain like the way it makes my soul feel.
definitely. And again, a lot of people don't see that. You know, they don't see. They only just see, UFC, the lights, the fights, and that's it. And they
Yeah,
don't. And
yeah,
that's why I try to. One of the main reasons why I do this show is just to get the fighters a chance to talk and explain themselves, and so people can actually see what they go through, or the experiences
yeah,
they went through, man. Because again, Mark Hunt was very grateful for coming on because he got to vent and also explain his reasoning behind why he wasn't happy half the time in the UFC. He said that he's most of the time in the UFC, I wasn't happy because they gave me this fighter and they said, hey, if you don't fight him, then guess what? Then you're not gonna have a fight. And then he got, he fought half the people he fought in the UFC got banned got hit with steroids. But then he's like,
right.
but like a year later, he was like, a year later, these people are fighting. Yeah, I'm still on sideline, but they're the cheater. But so I understood him and completely, like, that was one of the ones where I kind of was like an eye opener, because then again it was almost like the same song and dance, because then another fighter would say almost the exact same thing, and it's not like they all know
Yeah.
each other and they're saying it. It's just, so I was like, oh shit, it's pretty serious, man. And again, that's the reason why I do the show, just so people can get out there, explain their stories, and just share it, man.
Yeah, because listen, I'm sorry, but steroids are huge in MMA, and it's not like bodybuilding. Guys aren't juicing because they want to get all jacked up and ripped and look good. They actually need it because you are training 3 times a day, and your body needs to repair, and you need that testosterone to get through those training sessions. So that's why so many guys are juicing, and then they're kind of weaning themselves off as they get
Mhm.
closer to fight camp. So I fully understand it. Um, but it sucks. It
Yeah,
sucks,
it really.
because you do have guys like Mark Hunt, who is a real fighter who would not juice, and he goes in there to bang and fight, and it's either it's the whole like Chuck Liddell, live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm either gonna knock this dude out or I'm getting knocked out, and
Yep,
that's a real fighter.
definitely. Um, and again, I love Mark Hunt to death just because he was so real.
Me
Now,
too.
for your next, when's your next event? Since all this COVID stuff is
Mm,
happening, how is this working? Because like you said, it's a small venue to 250 to 300 people.
yep.
It's not too crowded. How's that working?
Yep.
How's that affecting you? What are your plans now? Because I know you have it on your
Mm,
internet. It says coming soon. Something's big. I mean, I know you're not going to tell me on
yep.
this, but but go on.
Well, man, it, I'm I'm honestly in pause mode, and it really really sucks because this is how it works right now. So obviously, you can't have fans, you can't have spectators because of COVID.
Definitely.
So I could do a show. If I do a show, I need a major sponsor that's going to front the bill, or at least at least half of it.
Okay.
But then you have a big nut. So it's my responsibility to pay for all the COVID testing. So
Oof.
you figure all the trainers, all the fighters, all the media, everyone's part of production. You figure about 100 people, it's going to cost you $100 to $150 per test. The
Oof.
fighters have to get tested twice. The fighters have to get tested like 3 weeks out and then again like 24 hours out. So the cost is crazy to do it. So I'm kind of just in limbo. What I will say is this: I don't know how the phases are right now as far as California, but when we get to the phase of the limited gatherings where they allow, let's say, 100 people, well,
Hmm.
then I'm gonna be the one that's gonna kill it because I could do 100 people and charge $1,000 a ticket and be the only sporting event in the whole entire state, and it would work really well, and I'll be able to take advantage of that. But until then, it's really difficult. But no matter what, I'm gonna do a show this year. Um, it'll be obviously because of no fans and spectators. It'll be very content focused,
Hmm.
where I'll do a lot of behind the scenes, what it's like to be a promoter, what it's like to put on a show during COVID, all of that.
Okay. I mean,
And
that
and the,
sounds that's something interesting as well. It's another
yeah,
perspective.
because this might never happen again. And I have some ideas from like a fighter standpoint with their backstories that I'm gonna do as well. But we might never see this again, so I want to try to take advantage of it as well.
Definitely, definitely. And again, whenever you do ever have that event happen, and maybe when all this shit's over and stuff, I would like to go, man. I mean, I could. You look. You don't even have to. I don't even have to sit down. I could not take any table space. I'll have everyone else stand. I'll stand in the corner or something, man. I'll pay whatever you want. I would love to experience that, just that event, and it would be kind of cool to actually have it as a channel, maybe like videotape and stuff, just to kind of give people like a look on what you're doing, because I think that's again, like I said, I really like that idea that you have behind that, man. So
Cool, man. Thank you. And it's amazing for the fighters too, because the fighters end up being the real celebrities of the night. I tell all the fighters at weigh-ins, I'm like, listen, when you're done fighting, you fucking better not go home. Leave your wraps on, bring a suit, do whatever. But when your fight is over, and if you don't need to go to the hospital, go back in that crowd, because everyone in that crowd is like, oh my God, I get to meet a fighter, and they treat these fighters like they're gods. And it's a
mhm,
real cool thing to see, because these aren't A-list fighters in the UFC,
definitely.
but these people that are going to watch these guys fight have so much respect for them that it's a beautiful thing, and I always really appreciate it.
That's awesome, and that's something you don't really see as well. Like, after the fighter is done, hey, the fighter's here just hanging out after. I mean, depends on his fight, but
Yeah,
that's pretty
exactly.
cool, man. Again, that's a really neat event.
Yeah.
But man, again, like I said, keep doing what you're doing. What you do is inspiring. You're always on the grind, which is awesome. Like we talked about before. Um, that's awesome, man. I really do enjoy it. And then hopefully, in the future, once all this shit's done, you can do events and stuff, and we'll see down the line. Again, you just keep your mindset like that, like you are positive and stuff, and good things are always gonna come, man.
Always positive vibes only, except for politics. These politics are making me want to punch people in the face. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's crazy, but again, I want to thank you, Steve, for coming, man. I do appreciate it. I
Of
know
course.
you're a busy guy. Yeah, I mean, on Instagram, you got shows that you're doing with Ken Shamrock, Chuck Liddell. I saw you a picture with Alex Rodriguez. So you're a popular man, and you're always busy. So again, time is greatly appreciated for it, man. I do thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me on.
And no problem, brother. And again, God bless, and nothing but good luck for you in the future, brother.
Yes, and let's hope for football season. That's all I care about.
There we go. Who's your team?
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
Okay, okay. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, yes, we will. Yes, we will.
All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
Absolutely. All right, my man. All right, you too, brother. Be